What's going on, rogue enthusiast, and welcome back to our channel. And yes, the title is correct. I have been no-lifing Mimighouls ever since they came out, and I must have like over 100 hours of playtime with this deck. It's absolutely insane. I brought it to every locals I've been to, and I've recently just went undefeated 5-0. And I also have a few other tops sprinkled in my records with Mimighouls, with some 4-1s or 3-2s. And I can say, this deck has been performing really well, and I've basically become a menace. Many people started to hate that Unicorn and even play a few like all the way, or taking them back all the way to cash format, where they had to play multiple combo pieces in their extra deck just so Unicorn doesn't rip them out. And I just find that extremely funny. And with that said, let's get into deck profile so you too can learn how to become a Mimighoul master. Starting off with 3 Dragon. Dragon is absolutely amazing for this deck. It's one of the best Mimighouls, if not the best. Arguably Archfiend can be the best, but we can also play that at 3 Dragon, such as spell or trap on normal summon. Or special summon, which is absolutely amazing, because you can search basically all the stuff you need. If you don't have dungeon, you search dungeon, get an extender of the dungeon and somewhat of a floodgate-ish effect for your opponent. Or you can get room, which room is a really good interruption, as it summons a Mimighoul to your opponent's field and then books one of your opponent's monsters. And then next up, we got 3 Archfiend. I feel like 3 Dragon, 3 Archfiend is quite mandatory, as there are not many Mimighouls right now, but they will be. So far, we only know Charm is coming. Speaking about, I can't wait to play that card. It feels like a win more card, but it's worth testing, and hopefully we get more Mimighouls. One that's funny enough, even though it's a master, is not. I don't find it as good as Archfiend or Dragon. I cut it at 2. I used to play it at 3, but then I just cut Cerberus, guys. Cerberus is cope. Cerberus is so cope. Like I absolutely don't think Cerberus is that good. Yes, you just play one more Mimighoul, but Cerberus does nothing for this deck. What's not full of cope, however, is 3 Unicorn to round up the main monsters. Unicorn is such an MVP of this deck, absolutely amazing. I don't play Fenrir. I believe Fenrir is not that good for this deck. Unicorn is just way better. I see some people playing like 2 Fenrir, 1 Unicorn, and I just think that's absolutely wrong. So many times Unicorn just won me games, just from being able to banish 1 card, and in the grind game, which this game is extremely grindy, you can just keep banishing so many cards your opponent has in the extra deck. They basically do nothing. That happened to me so many times. I entered the grind game with some sprite player, and he was absolutely sad seeing all of his combo pieces go. Absolutely MVP. Which is also another MVP of his deck is Shifter. Yeah, Shifter is quite unhealthy for this format, but this is what happens when Konami just makes a bunch of decks with 1-card combos that all rely on the graveyard, because they all have quadrillion million effects. All they have effects possible in hand effects, field effects, grave effects, everything. Shifter is gonna stick around until those kinds of decks are gone, I feel like. And why not abuse it? This deck does not really need a graveyard. Just make sure to not banish all of the copies, or like make sure to not get 3 dragons banished, or 3 Archfiend banished, or both of your masters banished. Just make sure to not do that. Unicorn is fine. Bird can just grab Unicorn from the banished anyway. And that's really good. And because of that, because we main deck Shifter, we play cards that don't counter synergize with Shifter. And one of those cards is Ash. Ash is really good, self-explanatory, it's quite generic negate. Any deck can be Ash basically, so why not play it? And then to run for more hand traps, I'm playing one Mimighoul, the hidden MVP of this deck. People are like, what, Mimighoul? Well, yeah. You can shifter your opponent, even if you open shifter plus Mimighoul, shifter your opponent, and then use Mimighoul to punish your own shifter, and then get a dragon in the end phase, because, you know, Mimighoul can grab any dragon, not just bestials. So, you know, opponent's turn, that helps a lot with this deck. I just count this as an extra dragon, basically. Since you're always gonna search the dragon or either grab it from the grave, even if you used all of your deck copies, which just helps even more with the grind game. Not only that, it's an interruption and it searches you your best 1-card starter, so why not? Mimighoul is absolutely amazing, and like I said, you can shifter your opponent and then end phase, Mimighoul away the shifter if they have a monster, because you need to control a monster for Mimighoul to be a quick effect. And that's fine. Then just grab your dragon and then combo off. And basically replaces itself while getting an interruption on the field and a body. So why not play it? I feel like everyone in their Mimighoul deck should play Mimighoul. Not only there are many light and dark decks out there, just so much for this deck. I wished it was 3, but sadly it's not. And for more hand traps, we got 3 Imperm. Imperm is quite good, just there's more end traps. It does work under shifter, and it's Imperm. Imperm is good, guys. Like, you can even just set the Imperm and then just use it as extra interruption if you went first. Stuff that you cannot set, however, when you go first is board breakers. And yes, I am playing a split of board breakers and hand traps. I found that quite good for this format, and you know, that's gonna get even better post Banlist, as I believe board breakers are now more viable now that there are less negates in the game, and most of the top decks got some hits. I believe now board breakers are quite good, and Dagger No More is a really good board breaker, and saved me so many games, especially when my opponent had an Apple, which is not gonna be the case anymore as now Apple is banned. But this saved me so many times. With I could get this off Trust as well after I bait an Apple negate or they activate a monster effect like Trust into Dagger, and then I can do my combos because this deck is so monster effect reliant, with all the flips and the sets to your opponent's field and the searches. An Apple can just kill this deck, but like I said, that's not the case anymore, and that's why I was playing Dark Warrior mainly. Speaking of more board breakers, we got 2 evenly matches as well. Just 2-2 because I play Trust. Obviously, I feel like every Mimighoul deck should play Trust as just free interruption, free searches of anything, guys. So obviously evenly match is quite good. Not only that, it also deals with back row decks. It's going second, you can evenly match their back row, and I find that to be extremely funny, and I love doing that. I love evenly matching back row decks. That's just a fetish of mine. But yeah, that's basically it for all the hand traps and board breakers. So now let's move on to the spells. 3 dungeon. This is just mandatory. Dungeon is an absolutely amazing card for his deck. Not only searches any turn, not just on activation. In the grind game, you just keep getting them back. He searches from the deck or graveyard, which is just absolutely amazing. Dungeon is a really good card for this deck. And one of the most broken field spells I've seen is not only it searches every turn and grabs from the grave as well, also it counts as a floodgate type of effect. So it's a really good floodgate as well. So you know, if you can Mimighoul room on a monster face down, it cannot be flip face up again that turn, which means your opponent can just never normal summon or attack with special summon monsters, which is really good because the Mimighouls are quite fragile. Unless his room up, which also gives your Mimighouls attack, plus their defense. That's just absolutely amazing. Master can get 3k, Dragon can get extremely beefy, and that helps up the clock a lot for this deck to kill your opponent. Just overall amazing card. Play it at 3, just prevent your opponent from summoning. Flu players absolutely cry. And this is our 4th copy of Room, just the terraforming. Why not? Play it. It's a 4th copy of Room. Room is so essential for this deck, you should play terraforming as well. Speaking of more Mimighoul spells, we got only 2 Maker. I've seen most people learn 3, and I believe that's quite wrong. Maker, it's a really big Ash bait. Just absolutely big Ash bait, but also like you control more. It's like a card that I draw it. I find it quite nice, okay. But I wouldn't play it at 3 because I don't want to draw it all the time. I'd rather see other cards instead. Plus, we can just trust into it anyway. Which, like I said, trust is a really big card for this deck. But yeah, don't play 1 Maker or don't play 3 Maker. I find two Makers just fine, is the perfect ratio. Most of the time with Dragon, you're gonna grab either Room or Dungeon, or if you have both, you just grab the Maker, or you open the Maker, So that is basically, you could also arguably say that it's an extra starter, it's like even an extender at one point, but just that depends on what you draw, or actually where your opponent is getting, because you're gonna select. Sadly, they have to be different names, so you're always gonna select Dragon and Archfiend. You're gonna put an Archfiend to your opponent's fiend. That's actually really good if you can flip it up. If you can't, you at least get a Dragon special summoned, which you can then use to search Dungeon, and then Dungeon searches another Archfiend, which can be normal summon to flip the other Archfiend. And that's just extra interruption. I spoke about this card a lot. Trust, absolutely great card for this deck. Amazing. You trigger your own trust, guys. Plus, if you get hand trap, you just search yourself Terraforming to get a field spell, or Room if you already have the field spell. Or Maker, like I said earlier. Trust is such a good card for this deck, something amazing, because you're basically always gonna have a Mimighoul on opponent's field, thus turning the effect of Trust, like the better effect of Trust, online. Or if you don't, you just get Room, and that's an extra interruption. Boom. Room is gonna special summon a Mimighoul and book 1. That's absolutely amazing, and the only reason I only play 2 Trust is because I play 1 Tactics. Tactics is also a really good card for this deck. You can trust into the Tactics, or you can just open a Tactics by itself. If you get hand trapped, you use the Tactics, or going second, I use that a lot to steal an opponent monsters and then link away with it. Especially monsters that have protections, such as they cannot be destroyed or stuff like that. Trust is just Talents is just a good card as well. And if you have a really good hand, you can always trust into the Tactics to look at your opponent's hand going first and reap the best card from their hand. So after they discard 1 of Archfiend, you also get to pick out their best card or their board breaker or whatever you want. And to round up the spells, I have 1 Bird. It's Bird. This is your main target. This is literally your target of Unicorn. Opening Bird alone just feels really sucky, but it has to happen. It's Unicorn, guys. Unicorn is just too good for this deck. You gotta play that Bird, and just really good. The grind game with Bird is absolutely insane. Every turn you just special summon it, come back and back at it again. It absolutely drove my opponents nuts when I kept summoning Unicorn and triggering my own Unicorn of my own cards. My opponent was just going insane after the grind game. Not only that, Many people forget when your opponent activates a spell and you control Unicorn, or any cash for that matters, you get to banish cards from your opponent's graveyard, which also helps out not only the grind game, but mainly the grind game, really, to be honest. Depending on the opponent's first turn, if you went first and got a bird up, it could be insane, and all of a sudden, poof, there goes some cards in the from the graveyard because you activate a spell, and I control bird and Unicorn. Absolutely amazing card for control, and this really is just an extra copy of Unicorn. I found that the attack points effect is fun enough came up a few times. But mainly this is literally just an extra Unicorn. It's just there to get Unicorn, and that's it. Just to make sure we get that Unicorn, or also to make sure we can trust, get Terraforming, which is gonna get us Resoft, which is gonna get us Unicorn. You see, guys, there are so many lines. I absolutely taught this deck all the way through. Every card in this deck connects together really nicely. And yeah, trust is just absolutely is like the bedrock of this deck. Next up for the traps, I got 1, 2, just 2 rooms. I would play 3 if I didn't have trust, but I have trust, so I only need 2. Broom is absolutely an amazing card. Special summons 1 Mimighoul, books 1, amazing. And then the grave effect comes up a lot, where it bounces any Mimighoul card, which it can be the field spell as well. A few times my opponent would target the field spell to destroy it, or activate something to destroy my field spells or my monsters, or even banish my monsters, and I would just chain room to that effect, banish it from the graveyard, and then bounce my cards back up. Not only, by the way, not only does one, it does how many Mimighoul cards you want. So you can bounce up your entire Mimighoul board. So you can just use them again, put them on your opponent's field, flip them up again, and all that. The Broom is absolutely amazing card for this deck. Hopefully Konami is gonna release more good Mimighoul support as this. I absolutely love this deck, and I believe it has plenty of potential. And for other traps, we got 1 Azurune. Obviously, this deck pumps out bodies like hell, and right now the best body to link summon going first is the Rabbit. You can Rabbit into Azurune. You can use the other card as well if you fear cards like Evenly or Lightning Storm or stuff like that. I believe from the memory that one targets cards on the field on summon to negate, so that's pretty good. But Azurune is just way more generic, and you can trigger whenever to trigger the Rabbit to pop a spell or trap, which especially now that Tempai only has 1 field spell, that comes up a lot. You don't need to wait for them to activate it in case they have multiple field spells in their hand anymore. On activation, you don't even get them to use the effect, just boom, summon Azurune, and then on resolution Rabbit is gonna pop the field spell, and that's basically it with Tempai. And speaking about Tempai, they absolutely hate seeing there can only be 1. Boo-hoo. Obviously all of your cards are different types. Unicorn is a psychic, Master is a zombie, Dragon is dragon, Archfiend is a fiend, and all that. The Rabbit is a fusion, illusion, Azurune is a fairy. This card goes absolutely hard in this deck, guys. It wins you games, especially if you're going first, because many people don't main deck spell trap removal, or if they do, both side deck they have Cosmics, so they're gonna always Cosmic your dungeon, which then you can just flip up there can only be 1 and be done with it. Absolutely crazy card for this deck. Amazing, just wins games by itself, really. And that's it for this deck, especially in this format, as I believe there comes a new maxi, and many people are gonna pay hand traps. So all you want is set a floodgate if you go first and see, get hit with Droll, and when you don't have Shifter, or you get hit with a Malchami, and you don't want to give your opponent's cards, you just set a floatgate pass. And let the opponent do your stuff. You flip a floatgate, and they get turn skipped. Not really fan of a format, to be honest, but it is what it is. We gotta adapt and main deck those floatgates. So let's get into the extra deck. For the extra deck, let's start off with the Link monsters. We got one Anima. Sadly, Link Rebo is banned. He died for the sins of Snake Eyes. But Anima, it's a really good card. Going second, steals one if your opponent isn't careful with their zones. Or sometimes there are some Link monsters with a Link or arrow up, which can then use Anima to summon it to their Link zone. And boom, bada bing, bada boom, that goes your Link monster away. That happened a few times. But most of the time, people just play around the zones because they know you have level 1s. So they know Anima is live. But we need it. Also, mainly because Anima, it's a body for SP to get a banish. So you have two Mimighouls on the field. You turn one of them into Anima, and then use Anima with other Mimic to summon SP to have the banish effect live, which is really good. SP is also absolutely good card for this deck, as much as Silo 3 card Rabbit is. Going first, get that Silo 3 card Rabbit up. Going second, or in the grand game, get that SP up. That's basically my mindset with this deck. Like I said, it pumps out bodies so much. You gotta abuse those broken Link monsters, guys. And Zero 3 Carp Rabbit, many people forget that it's an illusion and it cannot be destroyed by battle. So they're gonna try to run into it. They're gonna summon something, try to run into it, so you don't have the spell pop effect live. And then they just realize they can't destroy it. That's pretty funny. And for more Link 2s, I got Cerberus. Not many people play Cerberus, which I found out to be not that great. There were some games where Cerberus just won me the game. Right? Because some monsters have effect when they're destroyed, but some don't. And it's quite situational, but it's quite good. I find Cerberus to be quite good in general. Pose one monster, like I said, it came up a few times. What also came up a few times was Phoenix. Phoenix, just basically Cerberus just for spell and traps. Which is, this is the holy trinity right here, guys. I spirit try to banish anything from the grave and field, and then you have this guy to destroy monsters and this guy to destroy spells and traps. This is the holy trinity of board breaking right here. And next up, to make them flow together, we have IP, which I have no clue what happened to the A there. That's suspicious. Yeah, I don't know. IP is self-explanatory. If you have 3 bodies on the field, instead of summoning a Seal Tracker Rabbit, you go 2 into IP, and then boom, you have an SP life in opponent's field, or depending on the situation, a Unicorn. Unicorn also could, again, more board breaking right here. The Nightmares are absolutely amazing for any deck that could pump up as many bodies as Mimighoul does. And Unicorn, self-explanatory, bounces 1 card. That's just really good. If something cannot be destroyed or something like that, Unicorn just bounce it. It's basically somewhat of an SP, but SP banishes, Unicorn bounces. And to round up the Nightmares, we even got Griffin. Well, there is a really cool trick you can do, like if your turn you absolutely pop off, like you absolutely go bananas. You are gonna end up with IP, another Mimighoul, and yeah, let's put it right here. Let's cover the shames of IP. You are gonna end up with IP, a Mimighoul, and set a Mimighoul to your opponent's field. And with all that, after your opponent flips up the Mimighoul, maybe because you have dungeon, if your board gets that good, you probably have used dungeon to get there. And yeah, that's where they flip it up so they can normal summon. You get your whoever that was Archfiend, Dragon, whatever. But then you're gonna use IP. No, you're gonna use room first. Arguably, you should always use room first. Boom, room. Set a card in your opponent's adjacent extra monster zone, and then IP to go into Griffin in that extra monster zone to lock your opponent out. They cannot flip that monster whatsoever, so that monster is stuck right there at the zone Griffin points to, and your opponent just cannot do anything, cannot activate monster effects. That's basically you're basically skill drain the opponent. But also, Griffin, then on summon, is gonna grab that room back to do it again. Which is just so good, just basically skill drain your opponent for 2 turns if your hand is insane. But yeah, that's Griffin. To round up the links, let's get into access code. You see all these different types. There's some darks, lights, fires, earths. In the grind game, boom, summon access code out, blow your opponent's entire field, bang, 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 and then hit them with 5k because you probably used Unicorn to summon it. And that's absolutely amazing. And also, to deal with basically unaffected cards, this is what took out the place of IP. I used to play IP, Appaloosa, but obviously that's banned now. So Unicorn Goddess takes its place, a Goddess for a Goddess. But arguably in some scenarios this Goddess is better because it goes around monsters that cannot be destroyed or are unaffected. Just really good. Also on some skill drain the field because did you need more skill drains? That's it for the Link monsters. Arguably a Link heavy deck. But not only that, this deck can play Xyz monsters as well. And then we have Fuko. This is such a troll card, guys. Against Tempai, they would hand trap me. I was like, okay, summon Fuko pass. And then one guy used Fuko's effect in his turn so he cannot be destroyed by battle, and he tried to negate it with Droplet. And I was like, okay, well, that's funny. It's unaffected. It's unaffected. It's affected just so is activated effect just so it cannot be destroyed by battle. And that's just funny. Basically, you get to turn skip Tempai with this card, which is absolutely great this format. And then make Zeus. Your turn comes, you get this card, attack something, or you go straight into a downward and attack, and then summon the Zeus, which is absolutely funny. But in scenarios where Fuko, perhaps you go second, so Fuko is not that good because he has 0 attack, you get Assembled Nightingale here to do the job done. She can attack directly twice and has basically the same effect as Fuko. You can attack twice directly. And the boy himself won Zeus. Zeus self-explanatory, amazing because you have all these Xyz. And then one Titan. Titan is just great to board break. Absolutely amazing card. You get so many bodies, you turn some of them into links whatsoever, and then you just turn one into Titan. Titan bounce one, and bam, bam, bam. That's it. Then you have a float gate on the field, and your opponent randomly got one of their cards bounced, and you can then go battle phase to attack. Titan is absolutely amazing card, especially in this deck. As you saw, the theme of the extra deck is basically to board break. The extra deck absolutely exceeds into board breaking, and not only that, it also provides really good interruption going first with Silhouette Rabbit and IP. And even on top of that, there's a bunch of good grind game cards. The extra deck is absolutely thought out to the finest. So let's get into the side deck now, which could be changeable depending on your locals, but personally I like 3 draws. Draw is a really good card this format. Yes, it does conflict with Shifter, but it's in the side deck, it's fine. Maybe Shifter is not that good against some decks and Draw is, so we're gonna put in our Draw. And one card that I feel like is really good right now is Nib. This deck does have a really bad Ritual Beast matchup, and obviously them calling Earth with Protoss is really bad for this deck. You just get to absolutely do nothing, basically, because all of your Mimighouls are Earths. But guess what? They lose to Nim now. They cannot make Apo anymore. Apo does not exist. And same goes for any other decks. There's no more Baron in the game. There's no more Savage. And there's no more Apo. So I feel like that many more decks are gonna lose to Nim now. Which they actually do. Many decks do lose to Nim now. Except Empire, of course. But we got other cards to deal with that deck. And to round out the monster in the side, I got 1 Druid Swarm. It's just there, you know, if your opponent has a bunch of lights or darks, post side you side in a Druid Swarm. There are some matchups that are really good. Self-explanatory is a bestial, guys. It's a body on the field, and has an extra effect on top of that when it leaves the field and it goes to the grave. Pops 1 Spirit Summon monster. And that's absolutely amazing. Also, it's a body for link summons, and Magmut can search. If you already have Dragon, Archfiend Dragon, you search Druid Swarm instead, and that's absolutely amazing. Next, we got 3 Cosmics, the bane of Runic's existence. Sadly, Fountain or Gadley for some people. Fountain did not go to 1. So the deck doesn't lose to 1 Cosmic anymore, and I personally feel like Runic White Forest, it's actually quite good, and that's where the Cosmics are for, and many other decks. Perhaps other decks that like to set floodgates. And for even more back row hate, we got Duster. Unlike Cosmic, Duster can be searched of Trust, so that's actually great. Perhaps there's a scenario where you don't want to lose your battle phase from evenly matched, so you search Duster instead. That's where the thought of it comes from. And for going first cards, both sides, because we have board breakers in main, 2 Summoning Curse. Even more good cards for this deck. Summoning Curse is absolutely amazing. And I believe this is basically the only deck out there that can abuse Summoning Curse, really. Which is so good. Just take out post side deck when you know you go first. Take out those board breakers, put in the Summoning Curse, and the other 2 cards that I'm about to show right now. So self-explanatory. Every time your opponent summons, they need to banish 1 card from their hand, and that's just amazing. You know, Archfiend, not only on you know, when it's flip face up, is gonna make your opponent discard 1. Your opponent now also has to banish 1, because, you know, Archfiend was summoned, and then you might also use the Dragon effect to summon to your opponent's fiend, and there goes another card. Or you're gonna use Room to summon a Mimighoul to your opponent's field, and there goes another card. Or they're gonna summon 1 card, you know, by themselves, and there goes another card. Absolutely hand loops their opponent. And now for the last 2 cards. We got 1 D Barrier and 1 DDG. Very good cards for this deck. Trust can get either of them. Different Dimension Barrier goes really hard right now. Especially that I feel like Dytron is gonna make a resurgence, and same for Voiceless Voice. Now that the main decks have been slightly toned down, those decks are gonna come up again, and just Cold Ritual, guys, Cold Rituals. Also, those decks just lose DDG, which is just funny. But yeah, I only play one of each because again, 2 Trust, basically making, you know, you trigger your own Trust basically makes both DDG and the barrier 3 copies each. And that's absolutely amazing. And this video is quite long because there was so much to explain, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, like and subscribe. Casus, sign out.